Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see so many people showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you're here for a presentation on mental health and education. And we have a lot of good information for you, but we're going to try to not go over our time. And we're going to have an opportunity for you to jot down some questions and some experiences that you've had with mental health and education. So what we would like you to do is hold those questions throughout the presentation. And then if we haven't answered them by the end, we will have a period of time at the end for questions. And we can hang out and talk at the end. I can hang out as long as you'd like. But just so we can get through the presentation, please hold your questions. And just a reminder to keep yourselves muted. Okay, so we have 4 of us presenting this morning. So we're going to start with introductions, and I'll let Brandon begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Landry. I got my doctorate in Chicago in psychology. I'm currently the postdoc at Reedley College, but I've been connected and working with Michelle on her sabbatical for several months now, and I was very excited and eager to weave mental health and education together, as working on a college, it's what you do. So that's me.
And Dee, are you there?
Hello. I'm Dee. I'm Dr. Dee Massey. I work at Fresno City College as well, and I am always interested in supporting our LGBT students, and the human sexuality spectrum is my personal area of interest.
And I'm Michelle Patton. I'm an English teacher. I've taught English at FCC for 12 and a half years now. Last semester, the fall semester, I had a sabbatical that was focused on mental health and education. And I chose that subject because I often have students who reveal to me in one way or another that they're struggling with depression or anxiety. And I don't really know how to help them. I want to help them, but I'm an English teacher and I'm not really sure what my role is. And I've talked to colleagues who feel the same way, that they're just not really sure what they can do for students or what they should do for students. And also I've struggled myself off and on throughout my life with depression and anxiety. And when I was a student at FCC, I just hid it. I just tried to hide it because I thought I was abnormal or, weird. And I don't want my students to feel that way. I want my students to feel that they can talk to me about those things and that it's not abnormal, and that many of us, especially now, many of us are struggling, and many of us do struggle at one point or another in our lives with mental health issues. So that's me, and I'll hand it over to Anne.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. My name's Anne Scheid. 1991, I arrived in Fresno from the Midwest to take a teaching job. And I was in the art department at City for 24 years. I loved my job and the people I worked with and the students there. I retired in 2015. And I'm a longtime meditator and started teaching meditation about, I guess I've been teaching for 4 years. Michelle took my meditation class, and when she began her research in her sabbatical, we started having a conversation about how meditation could benefit her colleagues, and students on her. So that's why I'm here, and I'm happy to be here.
And I'm happy you're here. Okay, so before we get started, Anne is going to lead us in a short guided meditation. And part of what we're trying to do for you this morning is give you a relaxing, refreshing Flex Day presentation, and also, model some of the things we're saying that are good for our students. So if you've never meditated before, I'm sure a lot of you have, but if you've never meditated before, just go with it. Just try to enjoy it and see this as an opportunity to relax. So Anne, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Michelle. So this will just take about 3 minutes, as the slide indicates. Flex Day is a transition day where you're transitioning from the holidays to a new semester. In meditation, we use breath techniques to help us transition from an external focus to an internal focus. These breath techniques are incredibly helpful because they are easy to do, they are quite effective, and you can do them anywhere. I thought they would be helpful in this context. The breath technique I'd like to share with you is one of my favorites. It's called double breathing. The purpose of this breath technique is to energize and relax. It's a winning combination. So to start, let's check how you are seated. It's important to have both feet on the ground, have your spine nice and long, have your head level, not tipped back or down. Your hands can rest on your thighs. And while I guide you through the breath technique, you'll want your eyes closed. And it can be helpful to sit away from the back of the chair. Not essential if you have issues with regard to your back. Take care of your back. So, double breathing, let me describe it to you. There's a 2-part inhalation, a short and a long, sounds like this. A 2-part, let me say it's through the nose, and a 2-part exhalation, short and a long, through the mouth. So if you want to do that with me, just to try it, short and a long through the nose, short and a long through the mouth. Pretty simple. We're going to add to that one more component. So you inhale, you hold the breath, then you tense the body. I begin the tensing part with my hands, fists tightened, tighten my arms, shoulders, torso, legs, and feet. After you're tense strongly, you release the tension with the exhale. So this is what it looks like, or sounds like rather. Hold the breath, tense, exhale, relax. Let's try it. Inhale, short and long through the nose. Breath, tense the whole body. Exhale through the mouth and release. We're going to do 4 of those together. So if you want to get your spine nice and long, let's take a normal breath together. Inhale. Exhale completely. Now the breath technique. Inhale through the nose, short and a long. Hold the breath, tense. Exhale. Release and relax. Again, inhale. Hold the breath. Tense. Exhale. Again. Tense. Exhale through the mouth. Last one. Inhale. Tense, nice and strong. Exhale. Let go of that technique and just breathe normally. And notice how you feel. Thank you for your attention. Michelle, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Anne. I already feel a little bit calmer. That was very nice. So let me give you an overview of the presentation. So we're going to begin, just to let you know what we're going to be doing. We're going to begin with a little self-reflection for you, just give you a couple of minutes to jot down experiences you've had or questions that you have, and you can put it in the chat, or you can just write it down in your own notes. And then, like I said before, just hold on to those questions. Hopefully we'll answer them all during the presentation, but if we don't, you'll have an opportunity to ask those questions. Then we're going to look at some statistics at FCC, so we can see exactly what our students at Fresno City College are struggling with. We're going to talk about how to spot the signs of mental health problems, what to do for a student in crisis, and then practices and policies that support the mental wellness of all of our students. And then Anne will lead us in a longer guided meditation. And then we have a lot of resources at the end. And we'll put a link to the PDF of this presentation in the chat box at some point. Megan will do that for me so that you can have access to all the slides. You can have access to all the links that are going to be at the end. And then we'll have time for questions. So I just want you to take a couple of minutes to think about your own experiences with students and mental health. And then how equipped do you feel you are to help students in a crisis? And also, if you have specific questions that you came here with, jot those down too, so that we make sure to get those answered. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay. So like I said, hold on. Initially, we were going to ask people to volunteer and share, but there are 125 people here. And so that's great. But in terms of sharing, that might make things run a little long. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, though. And if you want to hang around at the end and talk a little bit, I'm happy to stay. So some statistics. Not the best way to start our morning, probably, with boring statistics. So I'll go over it quickly. So this is 2019, and it's from the American College Health Association, but I pulled the data for just FCC students. So you can see this is when they were asked if they were interested in information on these topics. Stress reduction and depression, anxiety being the highest of those. So these were more direct questions. If they had felt these things in the last 2 weeks, felt things were hopeless, 21%. You can see all the numbers, but the two that I think are really telling for faculty are the second two: felt overwhelmed and felt exhausted. And I bet if I asked all of you if you felt in the last, maybe not this week, because you've been on break, but before, during the semester, if you felt overwhelmed or exhausted, I bet quite a few of you would also say yes to that. So I think it's important to keep that in mind as we're, particularly now with the year that we have just had. I think it's really important to keep in mind that rigor and standards don't mean that we have to stress ourselves and our students out to the breaking point. And we'll talk more about that. So after the shutdown and post-COVID data from IR, so they did a big study and they asked a lot of different questions of our students, things like technology, accessibility, and things like that. But for our purposes, I just pulled this statement. So out of 3,703 respondents, 78.4% indicated that their mental health, their ability to study had been impacted by mental health. It's not surprising given everything that's happened. And I think we're all struggling to some extent. But for students who already had a mental health issue, this has made it much worse for them, right? Especially like those students who are feeling lonely or isolated. And then you probably all heard Dr. Montano yesterday during convocation. He gave us some more statistics, and just to summarize those, 56% were experiencing depression. The really alarming statistic to me was 75% of LGBTQ students were suffering from depression. It's not surprising that students of color and LGBTQ students would suffer more from mental health issues. We're already having these, nationwide with college students seeing a rise in anxiety and depression. But if you're also the victim of hostility or discrimination in your day-to-day life or threats, it's not surprising that you would suffer even more from depression. Okay, let me move. Oops. So I'm going to hand it over to Dee. I'm so happy that Dee and Brandon are here. They're the experts from Psych Services, and Dee is going to talk to us about some potential high-risk topics.
And if you did see Dr. Montano yesterday, for context, he's our boss. So that is how he works with our department. He is the coordinator of Psych Services. So this slide is potential high-risk topics. If you are receiving work from a student that contains these topics, I would say that's somewhere between a red and an orange flag. So if the student's work contains references to suicide, self-harm, suicidal ideation, violence or harm to others, violence, or harm to others, and violence and harm to self are very important. Sexual assault, past or present, recent loss of a family member or a friend, especially to suicide, isolation, loneliness, rejection. So some of this stuff, it's one thing if they are writing a fictional account, for example, in regards to a character, but if they're writing from personal experience, or if you're looking at that and you're seeing, technically this is happening to a fictional character, but this is very detailed. This doesn't seem like something that you are, you know, creating as a fiction. This seems like something that you're writing from personal experience. That is definitely a red flag. That is something that maybe you should reach out to that student for. Maybe you should start a conversation with that student. And if you see any of these things, definitely that's part of it. Now, I know that isolation, loneliness, right? Everybody's feeling isolated and lonely right now. There's a pandemic on, it's COVID-19. Crazy things are happening in our government. That isolation, that loneliness, that feeling of fear, that's pretty pervasive across the United States right now. I don't feel like it's an exaggeration to say. But what you're looking for is not necessarily sort of a general sense of isolation or loneliness, but isolation and loneliness within the family unit, where you're starting to get that rejection, that discrimination in there. Where you may see this in your students would be, as we've mentioned, your LGBT students who now may be having their plans of moving out at a particular time set back a little while and may perhaps still have to pretend to be something they're not in order to stay within the family home safely. Additionally, students, for example, often Hispanic female students, especially from more rural agrarian type families, don't always have the support from their parents that we would like when it comes to going to school and getting their degree or pursuing higher education. So when you have students like that in your class and you're seeing stuff in their work that maybe raises you a concern, it's a good place to look. Also, economic instability, homelessness, food insecurity, and drug use other than marijuana, cigarettes are also definitely some high risk topics. You can go to the next slide. Some potential high-risk behaviors. Now, this slide was initially created back when we were still in person, obviously. So some of this stuff won't quite translate to a Zoom environment. However, the majority of it does. Really what you're looking for here is a change in behavior, a significant change one way or the other. You're looking for behavior that disrupts class. And we understand to some extent that, right now I'm talking to, 130 some people, right? But everyone's on mute. So no one's actually being disruptive. However, we're all aware, I'm sure, that even under circumstances like these, students can find ways to be disruptive. And if you see that, that is definitely a bit of a flag, right? To see like, what's going on here? Do I need to reach out to the student? Additionally, asking yourself, hey, has this student been disruptive before? Is this a change in behavior from how this student has been? So also when you're seeing students on Zoom, if they appear to become very emotional very easily, like um, their emotional response is like completely out of proportion to the material being discussed, for example, then that might mean that a previous experience has been triggered, or you're having some issues with that. Student appears to become is tearful or has recently been crying. Sometimes you can see that around the eyes and face. Wearing clothing that's inappropriate for the weather. What this usually means is like heavy coats in the summer. It means that they're not responding to their environment, which by itself is a red flag. Does not appear to be engaging in hygiene. If you can tell that over Zoom, that's something that's definitely a red flag. If you're seeing a student wearing the same clothes, if you can see just an absolute mess around that student, or that they are not in, a similar place with the call, definitely keep an eye on it. And like I mentioned, their behaviors changes drastically during the semester. So a formerly excellent student starts being disruptive or just completely stops coming to class for no reason they reached out to you for. Definitely keep an eye out. So you can go to the next one. There we go. So these are the high risk behaviors. This is stuff where if you see it, you don't pick up the phone and call psych services, you pick up the phone and call campus police. So if a student threatens others, other students, other people by name, especially, even very broad categories, definitely if there is a threat, contact campus police. If the student talks about killing themselves, that is a time when you need to contact campus police. Not, maybe I'll call psych services. If you call us, you're leaving a message on our answering machine and we may not get to it right away. That's a student in crisis. They don't need us, they need the campus police. They need immediate. Basically, it's the difference between I'm going to go to the emergency room versus I'm going to call and try to make an appointment with my doctor. Sometimes you need to go to the emergency room. These students need emergency care immediately. If they talk about engaging in self-harm, if they have obvious self-harm injuries, if you're speaking with a student and you happen to see any kind of self-harm on their body, that is definitely something where you can call campus police. Also, if they don't appear to be able to obtain food and shelter, that is a obviously major red flag because that says that the student is so economically unstable or is going through some hardcore mental health crisis and they really will need the help. So those are all things that you should contact campus police for. Go ahead to the next slide. There we go. This is Brandon's.
And yeah, so part of what I wanted to cover here is what happens when a student comes to you. What happens when I'm being engaged and let's say they're starting to welcome in this depression, this anxiety, there's something going on in my life. And for whatever reason, and you may often hear this from some of your students, like, you're the only person I can talk to about this. Like, what do you do? Because you're kind of now in this almost like trap situation where you don't want to ignore what they're going through, but you want to understand it, but you still want to be in your role of being the teacher. Like, you're not trying to be their therapist at this point. And so, like, what do you do with this kind of engagement that I imagine is pretty frequent, especially now when I feel like everyone's looking for an outlet to talk about these experiences they're going through. And the big thing is to like never be afraid to talk about a student who has an issue. And I think a big thing to hammer home is it's never wrong to ask. And if you feel like, it might lead them a certain way, it will not. And so most of the time you'll be okay with engaging them and at least feeling it out. The big thing I wanted to, I guess, hammer home is an acronym I made for this, which is called Remain Here. And so broadly, when you take this, I want you to think about where you are. So you're in a classroom, you're a teacher, you're an academic, you're here to help the student learn and educate themselves. And so that's the thing that you need to keep forefront on your mind. Like, you're not here to be their therapist, you're not here to be their best friend and get all of their secrets, learn about their life and understand, but you have to be understanding to some degree. And so how do you navigate that? And so the first thing you always have to remind yourself is remain here. Where am I? I'm in a classroom and I'm a teacher. That is the biggest thing you have to keep on your kind of hat when you're talking to these students. And so what then that breaks down into the R of remain is reflect. So reflect what they're speaking to you. So if I was a student and I said, hey, I'm really sorry I didn't turn in my paper, I was super depressed and couldn't get motivated to do it, all you basically have to say is, so what I'm hearing you say is that you're depressed and that affected your ability to do your paper. Pretty simple, like just reflecting what they said. And then the next piece is honoring it or affirming what they're going through. I'm really sorry you're going through depression right now, or I'm really sorry it's affecting your ability to perform in my class. That's it. You're just honoring what they're experiencing or affirming it and letting it know that it's okay. And so then the next piece is encouraging them. You want them to know that, hey, what you're going through is normal. And I would encourage you to seek help, to talk to people about this, to engage the people or the resources on campus that are available for you. And so here's like the big thing of referring to resources. That's the big thing I want you to encourage is if they're bringing in some sort of psychology related issue, we have psych services on campus. We're all here. Like, I love meeting with students no matter what the issue is. And I know that any clinician up here could say the same. So please just know your resources to some degree and encourage them. The next piece is redirect for your own purposes. So obviously you're not going to want to ask like, so what are you depressed about? Like, let's dive into that. No, what you want to do is redirect back into the classroom. So you're remaining here. You're a teacher in a classroom. So you want to redirect to, how can we work with this? So you're saying that you're going through something right now. How can I help you as a teacher here to help your academics and your performance? So what can we do in this engagement to work through your classroom, whatever it is? So maybe it's this paper, like how can we work to get you to do this paper? Is there extra credit? If not, how can I at least affirm that you're not going to pass this one? And then engage them on that topic of what to do. And so that's kind of the big thing I want you to remember of this. The back half of it is just the language you're using. So verbally, just be empathetic, actually listen to what they're telling you. Don't just like numb through it and, stand fast in what you believe. Use a softer tone occasionally if they're bringing in if they're like starting to get super emotional with you, you kind of want to like tone down with them. Just be mindful of what you use. If a student's like, hey, I'm going through a lot, don't be like, yeah, that sucks, dude. Like, sorry about it. Because that can be pretty callous. So just be kind of thinking about what you're saying. Body posture, just make good eye contact, be calm. If you're an excited person like me sometimes you're like, all right, I got way too much energy and this person's sad. So like, tone it down, like calm down, use some of that meditation and bring yourself back. And the biggest thing that I was trying to clarify with this remain here is just be clear about your roles and boundaries, because it's so easy to enmesh with a student because you learn to care about them. And like anyone, if you spend enough time with them, you're going to genuinely care about them, because that's what humans do. We spend time with someone and then we just care. And I think it's hard when you have so many students you're supposed to care about. If you enmesh with one, you're probably stressing yourself out over this one student and then balancing all your other work. So just be sure to try and keep boundaries with students, and that can be healthy and good for them. We can go to the next slide.
Basically, what we're saying is if you care, that's amazing. Care in a way that's healthy.
Yeah. And so this is kind of just like back half of what to do. So it's good to care, and caring really means if the student is suffering with any sort of like life issues, they probably should talk to psych services at least for 1 to 2 sessions. I mean, I at least for me, I want to take some of the burden off of you all, because I know that, for us, a caseload is like 15 students, 20 students. For you all, it's like hundreds of students. So let us ease some of that burden for you, at least with like people who seem to be struggling a lot. And you can pick up on it, like read 2 essays from anyone and you're like, this person's going through it. But anyways, so if a student emails you regarding an issue, a death in the family, just always remind them that there are resources available if they need them. Don't like push them. Don't say they should do it. Like, just like, hey, like, I believe in psych services and I think you guys should too. Because really, the students trust you all. You're like the frontline people in a school, and whatever you guys say and how you present it will be what students take to heart. And so if you're like unsure about psych services, the students themselves are going to be unsure. But if you guys are like, hey, I believe in this stuff and it works, like mental health is real, then your students will believe it too, because they're looking up to you. They're coming to you for what to do. And so I think if we can create that relationship with you all, that's really my big goal here. So yeah, just remind them that services are available. Sometimes it might be like, hey, like talking to this person after class and connecting with them. And if you're really concerned, just call us. And, I'd be happy to talk to you about whatever's going on and hypothesize and help, relax the stress or tension, whatever is happening. So just please ask us and incorporate us into your classes, your practice, whatever it is, just so we have that relationship there. And it's really better to ask and be wrong. That was kind of what I mentioned before, but if a student, if you expect a student might be suicidal, like directly ask. Don't like tiptoe around it. Don't like go with the bush, like just really cut it and be like, hey, like, are you suicidal? Because most of the time, if they are, they'll say yes, and like, here's why. But if they're not, they're just going to be like, no, like, I'm not. you're not going to like put that thought in their head and create suicidality out of nowhere. That's a big thing to remember.
If saying the S word is scary, you can always say, you know, I've seen some stuff in your work that starts to worry me a little bit. Are you maybe struggling with thoughts about hurting yourself? You know, has that ever been something that popped up for you? There's lots of ways to ask, and there's actually QPR training that we're going to be offering a little later in the year to help you know how to engage with those questions. Also, real quick, in regards to the previous slide, we don't have to go back, but just in regards to that previous slide, a point that Brandon touched on that I really wanted to emphasize was that many times you, as the teachers, are our students' first advocate for mental health. Many of our students will come from families that do not advocate for mental health, and to some extent may not believe in mental health. They don't believe in taking antidepressants or going to a therapist. They believe that that's, you know, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or you just got to do things a little differently. And it's difficult for these students to feel like mental health and oh, you know, there's free therapy on campus. Yeah, you know, I've been to a therapist before. It was very good for me. Sometimes you are the first person to ever say that to your students. So keep that in mind, that if you did have a good experience in therapy at some point, it might be worth it to talk to your class about, because you may be the first person offering that perspective that therapy is a positive force. So just to let you guys know, as teachers, one of the things that we get that on one hand I love, and on the other hand I'm like, oh, I want to help. We can't confirm or deny whether or not a student is currently receiving services. So if you refer a student to us and the student is still struggling and you see them, and, you know, naturally you want to reach out to us and be like, you know, I asked them to get in touch with you. I gave them your information. Have they gotten in touch with you? Are they getting care? And that's you caring, right? That is you reaching out because you're concerned for a student. And that's what we love to see. Unfortunately, I can't, and none of us can, confirm or deny whether a student is getting services, has gotten services, has contacted us. So if you contact us about it, what we do is we go check that student's account immediately, right? If you contact us about a student. And 9 times out of 10, what's happened is that we have contacted them, we've emailed them, or we've called them and left a message, but we haven't gotten a response from the student. So it's always okay to reach out. Please understand from our side that we can't confirm or deny that information. We also can't provide services to students who haven't consented. And by consented, they mean filling out that RFS form, that request for services form. They need to have filled that out for us to have contact with them. Otherwise, it's actually considered a form of harassment if we contact a student and say, hey, you know, we're just reaching out to you. That can be considered a problem. So generally speaking, we wait to reach out to a student until that student has reached out to us. So if you hit us up and you say, hey, you know, we're really concerned about this student, we're not allowed to contact that student. What you can do as the teacher is contact them and provide an introduction to us, basically like a warm handoff, kind of like we were talking about before about speaking positively about mental health in your class. You know, I talked with the folks at Psych Services and they said they're open, like they have an open spot in their schedule. You know, what time do you have available, kind of things. You can kind of help to bridge that gap a little bit. If students are in immediate danger to themselves or others, like I mentioned earlier, if you're seeing things about self-harm, if you're seeing things about suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation, thoughts of suicide, thoughts of homicide, all of that stuff, call Campus PD. Don't call us and check. That's call Campus PD immediately. If you do have a question, we are always happy to help. Psych services at sccd.edu is our email address. I'm going to put it in the chat. But understand that there are certain things that are big red flags that you do need to call Campus PD, not us.
All right, so there's a lot on this slide. I'm going to try to be brief and summarize it for you as much as possible, but a lot of it is stuff I really want to tell you. So one of the things I focused on with my sabbatical was, yes, looking at students in crisis and how to help them and how to refer them. suicide prevention. But also I wanted to look at how can we promote mental wellness so that we're maybe preventing some of these crises before they get to that point. And for all of us, just to promote a culture of mental wellness and taking care of ourselves. So some of these things will work for you depending on your style and the subject matter you teach, and some of them won't. But just like we tell students, you got to try new things, right? Try it, and it might feel clunky or it might feel uncomfortable at first, but then you'll end up liking it and being able to use it. So the first thing I have is just include information about psych services on your syllabus and talk about it on the first day. So in the resources, I have a paragraph that you can just copy and paste and put into your syllabus. You can modify it, but I think it's important to do more than just have their information there. I think it's important, the language you use to talk about it can help them feel like, oh, this is a normal part of adult life, is that sometimes you need assistance, right? Whether it's tutoring or DSPNS or psych services. So that's part of being an educated, successful adult. Not that you get to a point where you never need help, right? But that you know how to utilize the resources and you know when you need help and you can ask for help. Invite psych services to do presentations in your class. And I know some of you will say, I don't have time for that. And I would just refer you back to that slide about overwhelmed and exhausted. If you do not have time to that level that you can't invite them in for 10 minutes, particularly the first week or two, we all know there are points in the semester when you are not as busy, when the students are not as busy. And they have different presentations they can do in your class. There's like a 10-minute one that's just an introduction. And then there are longer, more focused presentations. But just having the students see them and hear them talk makes it much more likely that the students are going to go seek out those services when they do need them or if they need them. Include self-reflective assignments that ask students to write about what they've learned and how they're doing in the class. So these can be anonymous, just check in with them so they can tell you. And of course, you'll get some people say, oh, I don't want to write any more papers or something. I mean, it's not like you have to take that advice, right? But if you're getting a lot of students saying this is going too fast or I'm feeling really stressed from the workload, that's an indication that maybe you need to slow things down a bit. Check in with any student who has revealed a mental health issue to you. So if a student has told you or written something that indicates they're struggling with a mental health issue, make a note to yourself. I know that we have a lot of students. Some of you have a great number of students that you're responsible for, but make a note to yourself and then just a quick email like the following week just to say, hey, I just wanted to follow up with you and see how you're doing. And just something like that, something as simple as that could really mean a lot to a student, that somebody cares, somebody is looking out for you. Can you guys hear me okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay. Where was I? Include articles and other resources for mental wellness. So this can be optional, it's in your Canvas shell, you can just put some resources there for your students and just let them know about it. Or you can make it part of the class, depending on what you teach. So I use sometimes articles or essays that have a self-reflective kind of component to it. So something like Plato's Allegory of the Cave. So the students are learning the critical thinking skills, they're learning the material, but then there's also this assignment that asks them to examine the caves in their own life, right? So abusive relationships, addictions, eating disorders, self-limiting beliefs, low self-esteem, these can all be a type of cave. And so there are different ways to work that kind of opportunity into the class for students to think about their own lives. Be flexible with due dates, particularly for students struggling with mental health. So I used to be a stickler on I don't take late assignments, and I don't do that anymore. And there are lots of different ways to do that, particularly now with everything that we're going through, I think giving ourselves grace and giving our students grace is more important than ever. So, you know, if it's about fairness, there are different ways to allow for some flexibility. So a colleague of mine, Jennifer Dean, I don't know if she's here, but Jennifer, I'm giving you credit if you're here. She has amnesty days during the semester, which I think is this brilliant idea. So there's a couple points during the semester that students can turn in things they've missed in the past. So it's this kind of, they know it ahead of time that there are these little moments built in, these days built into the semester that are little reprieves, right? And that can really help with the stress and the anxiety about class. Explicitly talk about self-care and wellness throughout the semester. Talk about what you do to take care of yourself if you're comfortable with doing that. Last semester, the spring semester, once we went online, one of the best discussion posts I had, the most successful discussion post I had was one where I just asked them, how are you dealing with being at home? How are you dealing with quarantine? And I went first and told them I was eating too much, but I was also trying to do yoga and, you know, I was watching too much TV, but here are the things I was doing. And I got more responses from that discussion post than any other. And they just had so much to say and they were responding to each other. And so there are lots of things you can do like that to kind of give them that opportunity. Self-care is homework occasionally. I know that might sound weird, but you know, when there are lulls in the semester, let's say you just, they just turned in a big project and now you have to grade that big project. And there isn't really, it's kind of a break between that unit and the next one, right? Have them, instead of telling them to do nothing, tell them, take a break from social media for 24 hours or take a break from your phone and then write about how it went. Were you able to stick with it? How did it make you feel? Or get enough sleep for a couple of nights. Get 7 hours of sleep a night this week and then write about how that went. Like we talked about before, keep in mind that students of color and LGBTQ students are particularly impacted by mental health issues. And it's our job to create a safe environment for our students. So I think you have two responsibilities when you see another student being disrespectful to one of your students. Your first responsibility and primary responsibility is to protect that student, is to make that student feel protected and safe in your class. Your second responsibility and opportunity is to educate the other student, right? And Dee uses a great term, call in instead of call out, right? So if a student has done something disrespectful to another student, call them in and explain why we don't do that and explain how we treat other people. But it is your job to create that environment that is safe for all of your students. Start a class or take a break with a moment of meditation, and we're going to meditate again in just a little bit. And this one's a big one. Practice what you preach. So take care of yourself and model good mental health for your students. And I know some of you work a lot. You are perfectionists, and I know it comes from great caring for your students. But when you're working yourself so much that you're exhausted, you don't have time or the energy or the presence of mind to notice when your students are struggling, or to reach out to them with compassion, or to creatively think of assignments that are going to be really meaningful and good for them. So not just for your students, but for yourself, it's really important that you take care of yourselves, particularly right now with everything that's going on. So spend time in nature if that's your thing, even if just going outside and looking at the birds, or spend time with your pet. That's definitely a stress reliever for many of us. Get enough sleep. You know, do the things that make you feel good, that fill you up, so that then you have something to offer to your students. And turn things off. I give you permission. You hereby officially have permission to be offline for a while each day, right? To be unavailable to other people for a little while, to just take care of yourself for a little while, you know, while managing your responsibilities. But each day, try to do something nice for yourself too. Okay, I'll stop. I'm preaching at you about this now. I'll stop that. Okay,
Just a real quick share right before we move on to the meditation. I wanted to let you guys know that, you know, for the teachers, for the faculty who is like, how does meditation even fit into my class? I want to let you know that my last year in high school, a bunch of 18-year-olds, right, wrangling the 18-year-olds in a chemistry class. I had a teacher who it was her last year, and she'd always wanted to try to see if our test scores would be higher. So she had us meditate for 5 minutes before each of our major exams, and our test scores were significantly higher than other years. And that's last year of high school, wrangling 17 and 18-year-olds in a class they don't want to be in chemistry. And it did show that, you know, boost to our scores. So every little thing can be helped with these sort of exercises.
Agreed. And so on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Anne, who is going to lead us in a slightly longer.
I think I'm unmuted. Would someone let me know? Great, thank you. Dee, thank you for that spontaneous enthusiasm about the significance of meditation. So you've been sitting and listening, we've all been, and I'd like to lead you through a guided visualization and introduce you to another breath technique. I think they might help revive our attention and interest. The breath technique is called measured breathing. Its purpose is to calm and center you. So this will prepare you for the second part of this. And this is going to be brief. Let me describe the breath technique. Inhale through the nose to a comfortable count, 4, 6, or 8. Hold the breath to the same count. Exhale through the nose to the same count. So this breath is all through the nose. We're going to do it to a count of 6, and we'll do a round of 4. The breath technique is so simple. Sometimes I find myself being sloppy about it. So what that means is my mind is racing back here while I'm practicing the breath technique. So see if you can't bring all of your attention to practice this really simple breath technique. So it calms and centers you. So check your posture again. Both feet on the ground, spine nice and straight, head level. Hands can rest on your thighs and your eyes can be closed. So let's take a normal breath together. Just inhale through the nose and then exhale through the nose. So inhale to a count of 6. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Let go of the technique and just breathe normally. And notice how you feel after that breath technique. Now, for about 30 seconds, let's watch the breath. wherever you feel it most clearly. You might feel the rise and fall of the lungs. Maybe your abdomen is moving as you inhale, expanding a bit and contracting. Just notice it, bringing all of your attention to watching the breath. I'd like to lead us through a guided visualization. You can keep your eyes closed. A tip: try to make this visualization as detailed and specific in your imagination as you can, and include the senses. So if the sun is mentioned or a breeze, try to feel that on your body. The visualization is called Your Mind as a Lake. You walk up a small hill, and as you reach the top, you see a beautiful lake. Think of this lake as your mind. It is clear and deep in various shades of blue. You sit down on the bank close to the edge to appreciate the water. You notice at first the area of water right in front of you. It is agitated with ripples. These are the ripples of your thoughts. This part of the lake is important to you. Your awareness is centered here, in this small section of your mental lake. Here, the ripples create turbulence. Now gaze mentally outward in all directions. See how vast this lake really is. Mentally expand your shores further and further. Notice how insignificant the little thoughts are bobbing up and down in relation to the lake's vastness. Tell those thoughts to be still so you can listen to the waves lapping on the distant shores of your mind. Listen intently. Try not to be impatient. Let the gentle breeze blowing over the surface of the lake caress you. Offer yourself completely, ever more deeply and calmly. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That was wonderful. I had a lot of ripples this morning in my lake. Okay, so I just want to go over a couple of resources with you. And then, like I said before, I think we have the PDF, a link to the PDF for the whole presentation in the chat box, or someone will put that in there for me, hopefully, so that you can access all the slides. But I'm just going to point out a couple of these. So this first one is the paragraph I was telling you that you can copy and paste into your syllabus. And then, like I was saying, it's really important to normalize the need for mental health, to talk about it with your students on the first day, and you can modify it or do with it what you like. And it ends with the Psych Services website there. And this looks like a mess. I'm sorry, all these messy URLs. But when you go to the PDF, you can actually just click on any of these if you want to find out more about them. So there are some apps there that students can use, or you can use. There's some suicide prevention, some anger management, some meditation apps. There are some articles and links for you. So stress in the time of COVID, I think there's a lot of good information there. Therapy worksheets for adults, free therapy worksheets. The teaching tolerance links from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Those are for K through 12 teachers, but a lot of it is relevant to us as well. And there's a lot of really helpful resources for educators there. There's a collection of articles, videos, podcasts, et cetera, on taking care of yourself during COVID. So those would be great for students and for you to just peruse and find things that work for you. There's a couple of, we've talked about the QPR. That first one is the QPR link. I did that training during my sabbatical. It was very helpful. I learned some really valuable things from it. The Cognito training is also really helpful. It's interactive, like video training. And at first I was like, I'm going to hate this, interactive video, but it was actually really well done. And the questions kind of changed depending on your answers. And so it was really helpful. There are some, there's a crisis text line. There's some other therapy and free counseling. And then I'm going to let Anne talk about these two at the bottom. Actually, Anne, let me talk about Express Yourself first, and then you can talk about your websites. So the Express Yourself, there's no link for that yet. So Brandon and I, as part of the sabbatical project, I didn't want this to just be, here's my report and I'm done. I wanted some kind of ongoing project or something that would create change around this topic of mental wellness. And so Brandon and I are going to do, it'll be virtual for now, but hopefully eventually we'll all get to be together. But we're going to do a community support group for mental wellness. So just you don't have to have any issue or anything, just a chance to get together and support each other in being mentally well. And we'll have different topics each month. It'll be a monthly thing. We'll have speakers sometimes. We'll have open mics so that people can express themselves if they want to read a poem or play us a song. So be on the lookout for announcements about that group. And then Anne, I'll let you talk about your websites.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. I just wanted to let you know we're at our 10-minute warning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This will be quick. Open to Meditate is a place where you can go get information about meditation, lists classes that I teach, meditation classes that I teach, and you can sign up for those classes through that website. Introduction to Meditation, actually, there's a class that starts tomorrow, so it runs 6 Saturdays at 11:30. There are a few seats left. You would be welcome to take the class. And I have an ongoing question in my mind about how I can introduce meditation to faculty, staff, and students at City College because it's not something that in the Western milieu that we are aware of very much. But as Dee mentioned, even a small amount of it can be so centering, strengthening, and helpful. The data is out there. The other website is, Ananda is a yoga school and training school for meditation. And the website is there. It's a beautiful website and quite amazing in the amount of information that's there. So back to you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. So that's really it. Is the link to the presentation in the chat box? Did everybody? Yes. They nod at me. Oh, there, I think it's there, right? No link yet. Okay, thank you. I'll get that. Yes, let's see. I'll get that in there. But in the meantime, we have a little bit of time. If people have questions that they didn't get answered, hopefully we answered some of your questions. And before people start leaving, I do just want to say thank you for coming. And I think it says a lot that so many of you care about our students' mental health. And I hope you take good care of yourselves this semester and have a wonderful semester. Well, I mean, you know, all things considered, have a wonderful semester. And that's it. If you want to hang out and ask questions, feel free. And otherwise, you are free to go.
Thank you, guys. You did great work.
Thank you for being here. Someone had their hand up. I don't think I have the ability to unmute people. Let me see.
I'm not finding, this is Sally, I'm not finding the PDF link in the chat box. I do see that there's the psych services, but I didn't see the other one.
Okay, I'm just going to take it from here and stick it right in there.
Thank you. Thank you for all the beautiful information.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
If you guys would like, you can make me the host and I can show people how to log on to get to our request for services. If there's a bit of a wait on questions right now.
Okay, Megan and Jennifer, can you make Dee a host? Is that what you said, Dee?
Yes, please.
And then it's in here now, the link to the PDF.
Thank
Also,
you.
you can always email
And
me.
your host now.
Okay.
You can always email me if you didn't get it or if you have other questions. I'd be happy. Oops.
Michelle, I thought that Dee was going to help us with the chat questions.
I was keeping
sorry.
an eye on them. It's okay. I was keeping an eye on some of the stuff. Okay, so can
Okay.
you guys see the Fresno City College website?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So from the FCC website, we go to Campus Life and then Health and Wellness. And then we scroll down to Psychological Services. This will give you our immediate web page. And what we've got here is kind of our little thing that says, okay, where our offices are closed, we're still offering that free online over Zoom. So all of our stuff is open to current SCCCD students over the age of 18 that are in class. If students want to set up therapy, they fill out the online intake form. If they have any trouble with it, they can use the PDF one and then email it directly to us. And there's our email address. There's our hours when we have summer session, our links for social media. It has the information about like, hey, if this is the crisis that's going on, this is what you need to do, right? Because we're not a crisis-based service. We're not going to immediately pick up the phone when somebody calls where there's no one live immediately to talk to. So we're not a crisis service. But what we do offer We have information for students here. Again, there's the links for the intake form, how to be eligible for this stuff as long as you're here, and then some of the common student concerns, the triage process, so what they can expect there. Also, we do refer out. And so here you can see that we've got information for the PSC, which is another California School of Professional Psychology at Alliant University. They're currently offering free therapy as well. And then we have a whole list of community resources. So if students come and click on this, there's an entire list of crisis information and low cost mental health providers here on this site, all of which they can call and get in touch with if they don't want to use us for whatever reason, if they don't want to kind of mix that too, don't want to come to school for therapy, that's totally fine. There are tons of other places we want to be a resource. The online services that we do offer for students are online individual therapy, online group therapy, talking circles, and assessment. So for right now, the groups that we're offering in the spring semester, we've got them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday, there's Rainbow Radar. That's our LGBTQ support. Monday, 3 to 4, that's with me. Then Tuesday, we've got a recovery resource. We've got a social skills group, anxiety toolbox group, a healthy relationships group on Wednesdays, Body Project, which is a body wellness, usually kind of focused on helping people have a healthy relationship with their body, some eating disorder stuff going on there. Expressive art therapy group, which is a really good like first group to come to if people aren't sure if they want to come to group or not. Group seems scary. That one's a good starter. Then there's also a parenting group. If you know that any students in your class are parents, that's a great one to check out. We also have Dream Circle on Thursdays to talk about dreams and process the things that come up in our subconscious. And then we have Comfort in Chaos, which is specific to adjustment to college and COVID-19. So we know that a lot of students are struggling, a lot of teachers are struggling, and Comfort in Chaos is for those students to connect. For talking circles right now, we have our Justice and Healing Circle run by Dr. Victoria Williams, Wednesdays 2 to 3 p.m. That one is open to all students. So that one's a really good one, especially right now, given the situations that are happening in the world. So that one's a nice one to have. We also do offer assessment right now, psychological testing. What we tell students is that if you're worried that your education is being impacted by some mental health condition, but you're not sure what, get in contact with us. We may be able to put you through a couple of tests and help you figure that out. So all this stuff is available for free to students. And then also we have staff services, ways to get a hold of us, ways to call us. We do get back as soon as we can. But as we had mentioned, if you have a student in serious crisis, you need to immediately call Campus Police. And if you're not sure, we actually have crisis do's and don'ts for staff right on our webpage, right? So this is super helpful if you're kind of like, what is the line specifically? It's right on our webpage. All that information is right there. And we have some really good mental health resources here as well that they can download, some breath relaxation, some MP3s, and then outside mental health resources are here too. So for anybody that's still here and listening, thank you so much for sticking around for an extra few minutes while I walked you guys through that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dee.
That was great.